Okay, so this is the beginning of the episode, but it's not the beginning of the episode. This is the pre-beginning, and what we want to do, the episode is not about last week's incident in the marina.
Yeah, but we don't want to skip past it because everyone's going to be like, well, something happened last week. But we obviously already started filming this episode before the issues, so we will address it in the following week. The
bottom line is, just as a little update, if you haven't seen what happened last week and you're intrigued, go back and look at last week's video, and as the update for that, the surveyor has been from the insurance. He's assessed the damage. The damage doesn't look that bad at all, which is great, but that's as much as we can say until we've had the official report from the insurance. So we don't want to say anything because we don't want to sort of affect the insurance claim or anything like that, or affect what the surveyor writes. That's it. The surveyor has been, he's looked at the damage. It doesn't look that bad, which is great.
And we just want to say thank you so much for all your lovely kind words of comment and support, and it's just ridiculous how lovely you've been.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, we're just blown away by the compassion and the love that we've got from you guys over the whole of this situation.
Yeah.
Right.
So time for some work now.
Yes. Now we're going to cut to the intro. That wasn't the intro. This is the intro. We bought this boat several years ago with the plan and the dream of going off and sailing full-time around the world, not necessarily in one hit, but eventually making our way around the world. And at the time it was the perfect boat, and it's still an amazing boat. But then Melissa got pregnant, as you know, and this boat, whilst it's incredible, is too small for a family of 4, perfect for a family of 3. So we upgraded to the next boat, which I'm going to show you now, which you're all aware of, I think, unless you're new to the channel. But one of the things that we loved about this boat was the enclosed pilot house. Now, the new boat doesn't have an enclosed pilot house, and I'm not trying to turn our new boat into our old boat, don't get that impression, but I want to include some of the features that we loved, particularly the enclosed cockpit onto our new boat. So to do that, Nigel and I got together last week. Nigel, as you know, has got the YouTube channel Bleeding Rust, link in the description and at the bottom of the screen, and he's a stainless steel master and fabricating genius. So he's helping us out building a cockpit enclosure that's going to be a step up from the kind of folding spray hood affair that we had before. And because of the shape of the top of the cockpit, the top of the mouldings of the boat, the way that we've chosen to do that is to build a mock-up in cheap timbers that can be used for other purposes afterwards, rather than spend a fortune. A couple of people last week suggested, why not take a mould of this? Well, for a start, the release agents, the gel coat, the fiberglass, the resins would cost an absolute arm and a leg. It would cost hundreds and hundreds of pounds to take a mould of such a big area. The final product would be enormous and extremely heavy and very difficult to move. If you made it thin enough that it was light enough to move, it would be very fragile, and if you made it thick enough that it was going to support its own weight and not be all wobbly, then it would be very heavy. And secondly, disposing of that afterwards, well, it's no good to man the beast, it's going to be no good to anybody except us, and it would just end up getting scrapped. And I'm not a big fan of scrapping fiberglass. One of the things we love about what we're doing with this boat is that we're taking an old fiberglass boat and stopping it going to landfill by giving it another 20 years. As you know, I'm on a personal mission to improve my own physical and mental health, and of course improve the boat, so that we're as prepared as we can be for whatever stresses and trouble future life sailing throws at us. So I'm really excited to share with you today's sponsor, which is AG1, which I've been drinking daily now for about the past 2 months. I've definitely seen a huge boost in energy levels, and when I think back to how I was over winter, I was really quite bad, and I've noticed a huge difference, not just in my waking energy levels, but also in the quality of my sleep, which I've found really interesting. It's such a relief to know that I'm getting what I need now, instead of having a kind of question mark over whether I'm actually getting the stuff I need. So there's 75 vitamins and minerals in there, pre and probiotics for gut health, adaptogens and antioxidants, and it's so easy to make. It's just 1 scoop for every 8 ounces of water. What's especially handy for me, going backwards and forwards between the house, which we're trying to move out of, and the boat, which we're trying to move into, is that they do it in the little travel packs, which means that I can chuck some in my rucksack and they're really easy to use and take with me wherever I go. I've got my 80-year-old mother actually taking AG1 now, and she's saying that even she's finding a massive benefit to it, which is really, really awesome. Taste-wise, I find it quite difficult to describe. It's not bitter and it's not sweet. It's that kind of, do they call it umami, or is that a word I've just made up? So if you're yet to try AG1, don't hesitate. They've got a really, really great offer for you. They're going to give you 5 of the travel packs and a year's supply, a whole year's supply of the immune supporting vitamin D3K2 free with your first purchase. So take advantage of the offer, guys, and thanks again to AG1 for sponsoring us because things are about to get very expensive, so every bit of support really, really helps. So the first thing I've got to do is remove the existing spray hood, which is old and tatty. It's actually the lovely shape that you get on the rival Bowman oysters, and they're a gorgeous shape. And I've disconnected the small flexible panel that we've got up there. So I'm going to crack on and remove the existing spray hood. I think the Americans call it a bimini. I've got my own feelings about that. This is a spray hood in my opinion. Let's move there. Of course she looks a bit naked without all of that, but gives you an idea of what we've got to do. The new enclosure has got to mount onto this spray deflector, which is a moulding that goes all the way around. It's actually part of this. I'm going to remove this in a sec. I want it to bolt to this, and then it'll come up to about here. So it's going to be a bit steeper, but we don't want to make it too steep because we think that will look ugly. So we're going to make it a bit steeper so that we've got effectively a roof from here rather than from back here. But why am I making it? What's wrong with the main, just the normal folding type spray hood that you get on every boat, and everybody in the world has them? Well, we're going to be living aboard, so we're going to be using a lot of power, so we're going to need more solar. We've only got one solar panel at the moment, which is a 110 watt flexible, semi-flexible panel, and that just fits on the folding spray hood, but doesn't fit very well, and it's not very sturdy, it's not rigid enough really, and we want to put some bigger panels on. So the primary reason is to create real estate for more solar. Along with that, more protection from the sun, more protection from the wind, more protection from the rain, more, you know, it's just a nicer place to sit. And I want to try and build into that, if I can. I might not be able to, but I want to try and build in a boom gallows so that when we're at anchor, we can lash our boom to it, stop it chattering around. And if you're on a long tack on a passage, you can do the same. So there's loads of reasons, really. We want to do it sympathetically to kind of work, but not make the boat look ugly. What I mean by that is kind of mirroring some of the curves that we've got in the boat here. We can't do long sweeping bends, but we want to try and get as close as we can to kind of not detract from the gorgeous lines of the boat. And the screen at the front, I want it to come up vertical enough that we create a lot of room on the lid, on the top, but not vertical, not so vertical that it's ugly. It's got to have a bit of a lean back to it, otherwise I think they just look a bit clunky. And I'm going to start by building the roof frame, but I'm going to hang it from the boom to begin with to get it in position. So hopefully that makes a bit of sense. We've got an apex in the middle, which is about 150 mil up in the centre. In fact, it's exactly 150 mil up in the centre. From there, yeah, 150 mil up in the middle, both sides. So the angles are pretty much identical. And bear in mind, even with the stainless tube, over those kind of spans, you've got a certain amount of flex in it anyway. So I'm pretty pleased with that. I want to strengthen it up a little bit. I'm going to put some gussets in the corners so that when I lift it up onto the boat, it's not all flobbery. That's a little bit more sturdy now. So I've basically got two frames which are going to hold up to be the roof. Can you see me there? The roof of my cockpit. And there's a bit of an apex in between the two. It's light enough for me to move around on my own. It's rigid enough to hold its own shape when I lift it into position. And it's, you know, maneuverable. So I'm gonna do an update to Patreon, because this episode's coming out on Wednesday. Normally we would put our Patreon episodes up on Sunday, so I'm just going to do them a bit of an update to say what's going on, so they'll have a bit of a real-time thing. Remember, if you do want to become one of our patrons and get real-time updates, join the WhatsApp group, that kind of thing, follow the link in the description. Now I want this roofy bit, I want it to be high enough to protect us when we're in the cockpit, but I want it to be low enough that I can see over it from when I stand on the helm seat. Let me show you this, what I mean. Port and starboard are slightly lower, and the helm seat is about 6 or 8 inches higher. But that means that I want the roof bit of our enclosure to be just the right height for me and Melissa, so that when we're standing on the helm seat you can just peer over the top. But let's get some legs on, and then we can always saw the legs down. I can make adjustments, so if I feel like, oh, it's a bit too tall or it's a bit too short, I can add a bit on and take a bit off. Having measured all the way around, this is 1726, 1726 millimeters. So that point there is exactly halfway. So I can measure that up with exactly the apex of my roof. I may not have a post exactly there, I don't know yet, but I'm going to put one in for now, just so that I get the whole thing squared up completely true. The advantage of doing it this way, and I'm more and more convinced that it's the right thing to do, is that we can now live with this for a couple of weeks until we take it up to Nigel to have it made in stainless, and we will know then whether it's too hard, too low and we keep banging our heads on it, or too high and it looks too ugly. And I've just cut some small pieces of aluminium to kind of mock up how the mounts are going to go. These will go. These are the original mounts, but they were handy reference points for me. And you can see also now how this geometry of getting the curvature to go up, round and back down is really, really, really tricky. It just looks a little bit like a shanty town at the moment, but it will look fine. I'm positive it will look fine once it's all done in stainless. Do you get the idea? I think it needs to be lower, don't you? I think we need to live with it for a bit. Actually use it, because it's a balance between aesthetic and functionality, isn't it? I've brought our tender home, which looks a bit strange sitting there, but I brought our tender home because I'm making a new floor for it. The inflatable floor is this one here, which goes in the boat, and it's not the original one from that tender, so it doesn't quite fit, so the floor flexes a bit, plus it's got a slow leak. So I've been making a wooden one. These boats, the Avon 310, originally came with a wooden floor, so I'm remaking a wooden floor. So I've cut my panels into sections, and I'm glass clothing those, so they're all being glass clothed, and then they'll be painted. We've still got loads of stuff that we need to get rid of. There's a whole dog grooming bath there, so at the minute it looks a little bit like a rubbish dump, but it's just because we're emptying the house and emptying all the garages. And in the meantime, I've got an old sail bag there, a sail boom cover, which is a perfectly good piece of canvas, so I'm going to cannibalise it and make some dinghy chaps. I could go and buy brand new fabric to make dinghy chaps, but I probably will eventually, but I thought I'll practice on some old fabric. So I'm cutting up this old tarpaulin to make the cover for the dinghy, to stop the UV, or to just prevent it, help it last a little bit longer than it otherwise might. This is the fabric kind of cut to fit, and I've marked it all with chalk so I can take that inside and start sewing it up. I might find I have to put a cut just here and take out a little V. I'm going to just work at it slowly until it fits and get half of it to fit, and then use the other half to cobble together the other half out of what's left of that. I might have to be a bit creative, so it might look a bit higgledy-piggledy, but it just protects our dinghy from UV, doesn't it, for now. Which have now been glass clothed on both sides, and I'm starting to coat them with 2-pack epoxy to seal them. I mean, they're sealed anyway, aren't they? They're glass cloth, but it makes them look prettier. There's the one dinghy chap which I'm now going to take inside and start sewing the hems and kind of tidying up all the corners. Well, we're having a few sewing machine issues, but that's okay, we're overcoming those problems. What I want to do now is make some sort of system to attach the panels together. I'm having a bit of a scratchy beard, scratchy chin meeting with myself to decide whether to go with webbing straps or some canvas to act as a kind of hinge between the panels so that I can fold them all up, or to go with some more rigid timber or stainless or alley or something to bolt to the actual panels to keep the floor really stiff when it's in place. I've got a piece of stainless flat bar there. I've only got one piece of that, but if I screw that up the middle, and then I've got 2 pieces of mahogany. I think it's actually sapele or Oroco or something, but I've got loads of this in my garage, so if I do this and bevel the edges and round the edges, make it look nice. This stainless will attach the 4 big panels, and then these 2 will attach to the front one. This front one doesn't really matter, actually, you could get rid of it completely. I've immediately changed my mind. This piece of stainless, whilst very strong, is already getting hot to touch in the sun. And where we're going to be sailing, somebody's going to burn their foot on that. So I'm just going to stick with the wood. What we've got here is almost a rib. It's not a rib. It's not a rib. We've got our marine ply, birch ply panels, which have been glass clothed and epoxied on both sides, painted with epoxy paint, and then I've got these mahogany slats joining them together. I've left out the middle one because it occurred to me the inflatable keel runs up the centre, and if I put any screws through and they happen to protrude slightly through, they're going to puncture the inflatable keel. So I'm going to wait until I've got the captive nuts to put on the back of there. And I'm really annoyed with myself because even though I drilled a pilot hole, that's split. So I might have to make another one of these. I might be able to glue it. And once they're oiled, they'll look nice. And they're actually quite nice because there's something for your lip to put your feet against when you're sitting in the dinghy. So you saw me put the new floor in the dinghy, and then I didn't actually film myself launching with the new floor. So I've come out to check Emily's little boat. Emily is my daughter, you've seen in previous episodes, and she's got the little Vivacity 24 bilge keeler that you would have seen on the drive of the house. And she hasn't got much time to come and keep an eye on it, so I pop round every once in a while and check it's all right. So I've come up the River Sayant, which is this river here, just round the corner from where Ocean Melody is stored. And this is where we live, guys. This is Carnarvon. This is Carnarvon Castle. That boat there is, no, that one there is called Orca. That used to be my boat, and it was called Morning Sun, and then I changed the name to Tabula Rasa, and then I sold it, and the new owner, Frank, changed it to Orca, and she's a Hartley 30 steel boat. So Steel Melody isn't the first steel boat I've owned. I have owned steel boats before, but this here is the River Sayant. That's Emily's little boat, which is in a bit of a sorry state, but she's there and she's floating and she doesn't seem to be sinking. I've just been and pumped a little bit of water out the bilge, but it's all good. The reason that she looks lower on the nose than at the aft end is because the engine's still in my garage, so there would be a bit more weight here. So she's a little bit light at the back end. And this boat here is Aeolus, which is our first ever sailing boat, or mine and Melissa's. I'd had many, many boats before Aeolus, Orca included, well, the Hartley, Steel Hartley included. But that's Aeolus, which is where our Sailing Melody channel all began. And I'll tell you what, the new floor makes a massive difference to this boat. It handles so much better. I'm only doing 2 or 3 knots at the moment because I'm coming out of the river. But you watch the difference. It's so much stiffer. It's stiffened the whole boat up, which means it jumps up onto the plane easier and doesn't flop around like it was doing with that silly inflatable floor. This is awesome. I'll wait till we get under the bridge and then I'll open it up. So this is what it looks like from the sea. It doesn't look terrible, does it? But I just do think it's too high. It's too high. I need to take 6 inches or maybe even 12 inches off the height of it. And it'll look a lot nicer. Yeah. But I think the shape, we've got the shape right. That's it has to be that big to be usable for 2 decent sized solar panels, and getting solar in any reasonable quantity on a monohull is always difficult. After we just filmed the not intro that you saw at the beginning of the intro of this video that wasn't the intro, Melissa is now here, and we've all agreed, and the surveyor who came has also agreed that this is too high. We're all in agreement that it's a brilliant idea, but can you see the thing? It's just head banging height. Yeah, and it's also knock you out height. So I think it needs to be low enough that you definitely don't hit your head on it when you're walking past. What we've discovered on boats and living on boats is something's either got to be way high enough that you don't bang your head, or so low enough that you consciously have to duck. Yeah. If it's kind of just that height, you're always going to knock your head. Yeah. So it's either got to be one or the other. Yeah. So, for example, if we're going into our crawl through, the stoop through as we call it, into the aft cabin, we never hit our heads because it's low enough that we know we have to duck. But whenever we go into our forepeak, the lintel is just here and you always hit your head on it. Especially if you're wearing a hat, because you're not sort of seeing it in your peripheral vision. So we need to make this lower, and it's going to look lower now. Oh, somebody in attendance. So yes, it's now lower. It's in a much better position to stand at the helm. There's much more room under the boom for our reefing lines. There's more room on top of it for our solar panels. You're less likely to bang your head on it. It doesn't look so ugly. That's much better, I think, isn't it? That's yeah, and the rake on the front, the rake of the kind of windows on the front looks a lot nicer. Wonderful. So I'm happy with that. I'm now gonna, what I'll do before I take it up to Nigel's is I'll add a load of strengthening pieces in, which won't be part of the final structure, because the final structure obviously will be made of stainless, so it'll be much stronger than that. And I'm going to put a load of triangulation bits in just to make this hold its shape for the journey. So don't be surprised if when you see the video of us taking it up there that it looks like there's a load of weird bits there. And a lot of you are going to say, oh, you need a gusset here and a handle there and a triangulation piece. Yeah, we know that. That's all part of the build process in stainless, which is a completely different thing than the templating process in wood. So there you go. Other people recommended building it in cardboard, but that would have just been really flimsy and floppy and difficult to hold any sort of shape at all. And this will give us a much more accurate idea of the structure of it. Anyway, there you go. Thank you very, very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed the episode. And as I say, as we said at the beginning, there will be an update about what's happened with the boat and the survey and the insurance and the damage and what have you next week or the week after, depending on when we get the report back from the surveyor and the insurance. But we can't really say too much about that while there's all that kind of paperwork and logistic, kind of bureaucratic stuff going on. And again, thank you so much for your support, and particularly our patrons who've just been amazing. If you do want to become a patron, links in the description. Bye.